When we're getting started in video production, mastering the basics is the surest way for us to guarantee our projects have the best chance for success. So I'm going to spend a couple of episodes talking about some of those basics, and today I want to touch on panning, tilting, and zooming. What's up everybody, it's Shane here at Waiting to Be Seen. I want to welcome you to this week's video. Depending on whether it's an appropriate thing to use or not, using high impact techniques can add some really good value to our content. But the temptation is to try and pull off this stuff a little bit too early in our careers. The issue being that intricate techniques and complex movements are exactly that. They're intricate and they're complex. Whether we're an indie content creator who's just starting out with a YouTube channel, or we're a full-blown feature film DP, it's the solid fundamental movements that are the building blocks that minimize mistakes in the long run and afford us the correct platform with which to build in the more complex motions. Cameras capture images by moving anywhere pretty much in that XYZ axis, and that means we can move up, down, left, right, forwards, backwards. In order for camera operators and directors to kind of communicate nice and effectively, there were names for each of those moves developed. And it's for that reason that the three basics we're covering off today remain such a fundamental element to our craft. Now the first movement is a horizontal one. Try this for me. Look to your left, then to your right, back to your left again, maybe back to your right again. That is a panning motion. That's the term for it. And for a panning motion, our camera is going to specifically move left and right about a central axis. And that's because the camera is going to be mounted in a fixed location, such as sitting on a tripod. But hey, it could just as easily be on your shoulder like we see with news camera operators, or maybe even held in nice and tight in front of you when you're doing these ones. It might sound easy, but it's actually a tricky motion to nail. When we look to the left or to the right, the motion is going to be nice and smooth. And when you did that with your head, it would have been smooth, right? Even if you did it quickly, the inbuilt stabilizers in our heads would have helped to smooth it out. And in the same way, when we're panning our cameras, we want the action to be smooth. And that is going to take a little bit of practice, as there are a bunch of things that kind of affect how smooth we can get our pan. Things such as the tripod. This is a nice video tripod, but there are some that are actually designed for photography versus video, and so they don't put in the bits and pieces that actually make for nice smooth panning. Other things like the resistance. Some people like to have no resistance at all. Some people like to have a lot of resistance. Those things all go into affecting how smooth the pan will be. Also, having a handle on the back. This thing, you know, if you grab hold of it, it's going to shake. And that's not going to be a good, nice, smooth motion. So you just want to do a gentle, maybe a single finger. For something like this, you certainly could get away with using a single finger. Nice, smooth, horizontal action. That is panning, and that's the goal. And interesting, I'll just put this out there while I've got you on the idea of panning. In order for the camera to pan to the right here, you actually need to take the handle and push it to the left, so that the camera starts looking to the right. So you're panning right and then you're panning left. It's a little bit confusing, but it's another one of those things that needs to get some practice. I need you to pan left. Okay, I need you to pan right. Pan left, pan right, etc. Okay. That same concept of having smooth motion is applicable for our second camera movement, which is on the vertical axis, okay? That's this one. So try this for me. Look up at your ceiling, look down at your floor, look up at your ceiling, look back to the camera. That is a tilting motion. So likewise, when we change the framing in our shot by moving the camera lens up or down while it's keeping this kind of horizontal axis constant, we're tilting our shot. So panning and tilting. Panning is much more common though than tilting, and that I think is because we look left and right a lot more than we look up and down. So just be aware of that. If you're creating content, you can use the tilt, but you'll probably find you use it a little bit less frequently than the panning. That brings us to camera move number 3. And look, technically speaking, a zoom is not a camera move, as it's not requiring the camera to move, but rather it's the lens. It still gets discussed with pan and tilt though, and it's because it has the ability to move our framing along this Z axis. In geek speak, Zooming means that we're altering the focal length of the lens, and that gives an illusion, okay, of moving closer to or further away from the action. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, it took me a while to notice it personally, that there's a T and a W on most zoom controls such as this one. The T is for telephoto, zoom in, and the W is for wide angle, zoom out. I just want to point out that the effect of zooming is not actually quite the same as physically moving our camera closer to or further away from the action. And the reason's really simple. It's because we're effectively magnifying a part of the same image. Okay, so our camera is set in this space, it's seeing whatever it is seeing down there, and when you zoom in, you're zooming in on that same image. It's just magnifying it. Whereas if we were to physically move our camera closer to that action, it actually changes the perspective a little bit. So keep that in mind. For filmmaking, it's important to understand not only how the pan and the tilt need to work, but also how the zoom works and what kind of effect that might have for our audience. It's really important stuff. And if I could be so bold, I think that zooms are an easy to use but hard to get right feature of most cameras. And actually, I think that they're probably the most misused of all camera functions as well. If you're just starting out, put these 3 basics into practice. Work on how to effectively get from point A in your shot to point B, whether that's through pan, the tilt, or the zoom, or maybe even a combination of 2 or 3 of them. And I hope that by touching on these camera basics, something has been useful and helpful for you. If you made it this far, then give me a good old thumbs up for today's video. Let me know that you thought it was good. And if you think that this, as well as the other content that I have on my channel and the future content that I'll be releasing may be of use for you, then subscribe to my channel today as well. Click on that big old red subscribe button down below, click on the notification bell and join the notification squad, and YouTube, they will take care of the rest, letting you know when the latest content is released week to week. On that note, I'm all finished up for today. Thank you so much for stopping by. This is Shane for Waiting to Be Seen. I hope you have a brilliant weekend. Hope the week ahead looks good too, and I will see you next week. Bye now.
That's gonna leave a mark.
What?